Hey, A's fans, if you turn the game off after the top of the first inning, you had a pretty good night.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Wow. Hello, A's fans, and welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about your Oakland A's all year long, whether they play in Oakland, Sacramento, or Las Vegas. But as we're going to talk later today, I still don't think that's happening. I am your host for this season. My name is Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I've been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now. This is my sixth full season here at Locked On. And I'm normally the host of the Locked On MLB podcast. I host that every day as well, but I'm doing double duty for this year. Hey, follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever the hell it's called now, and on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And I'm recording this in the evening of July 9th. 2024, and we're going to be talking a little bit about someone whose birthday is today that connects both the Red Sox and the A's. You're probably hearing this actually on the 10th, but you know what? I really can't control your listening habits. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedon and use code all lowercase Locked On MLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Not a lot to break down for this game. The opening night of the Red Sox A's series, and it was Estes having his return after the last time he pitched. He threw a complete game shutout, and the A's had a winning homestand against Baltimore and against I keep wanting to call them the California Angels, and do what I think I will. No one's stopping me. What are they going to do? Sue me? And when the game started and the A's jumped, Rooker, who is basically putting a big for sale sign on himself, as he's inevitably going to be traded to a contender before the end of the year. He got a line drive double, and Andujar scored. Langelier followed it up with a single, and the Red Sox were down 2-0 before they even came to bat. And there was a sense of, hey, Estes pitched great the last game, and this could be a situation where the A's, catch a Red Sox team on their heels, especially because the Red Sox just had a very emotional series against the New York Yankees. And if there was ever a situation you're going to catch a team napping, this was it. And then here's the deal. The Red Sox didn't nap because they counterpunched the Hamilton single, and then Rafael Devers, who is having an unbelievable season for the Red Sox and seems to always come in big in the big moments. He got the 2-run single. And then Rafael got a triple in the second. And then that second inning, just everything. Devers doubles, Yoshida singles, Abreu homers, Smith homers. Hands up if you remember Dominic Smith was on the Red Sox. It was 11-2. 11-2. And, give the A's a little bit of credit. Butler hits the home run, and they start to chip away, and you start to think, hey, the Red Sox didn't score any runs. They scored one run after the second. And I'm not trying to say that the A's pitched great, but it was, give the bullpen credit that they held them to one run the rest of the way after the disastrous second inning. And they did score a bunch of runs, but we can't go into the whole, they scored 9 runs, they should have done this, we should have done that. No, because the Red Sox basically didn't touch any of their main relievers. Kelly has been a top reliever, but they let Bello in for probably a couple innings longer than he would have normally. He struck out 11. He wound up letting up 5 runs, but they didn't want to gas their bullpen. And the final inning was Trey, what's his name again? Trey Wingenter. Trey Wingenter made his 2024 debut for the Red Sox. He played a couple of years with San Diego in 2018, 2019. Last year, he pitched a handful. I pitched 17 games with Detroit last year, and this was his season debut. And his job was just stay on the mound, make sure we don't have to use anybody else, so the bullpen is completely rested and ready for the game on Wednesday. So the 9 runs is a little misleading. I mean, if they had really continued to rally in the 9th, that would have been something, but it wasn't something. And you know what? I mean, if you're going to lose, get punched in the mouth. I would always rather be blown out of the dump than lose a close game. When you were down 11-2 after 2 innings, I mean, what's there to dissect? What is there to dissect with that game? When you lose in extra innings, like some of those ridiculous games against Tampa, that's aggravating. When you had those 2 losses to Baltimore, where you had the winning run at the plate or the tying run in scoring position or whatever, that's aggravating. But, having the doors blown off the dump, he said, not our night. Not our night. To paraphrase Whiplash, not my time. So Sears against Pivetta. This is a winnable game for the A's. Sears can pitch well. Pivetta can be up and down. The A's also didn't use any of their top relievers. So what do? Dust yourself off so you see you can score some runs. And one of the things that I've said is avoid that one horrible inning. They had the horrible inning in the 2nd inning, and they never recovered from it. Avoid that horrible inning. It's a salvageable series. The Red Sox, by the way, have been playing unbelievably great baseball, and they've made up 10 games on the Yankees. The Yankees are in a bizarre free fall right now. By the way, check out Locked On MLB, the latest episode. We talked about the power rankings, which is voted by me and the other Locked On hosts. I don't understand why the Yankees are still up that high. They're playing like a legitimately bad team. I wish the A's were playing the Yankees right now. They'd pick up a couple of wins. But I digress. All right, well, bad win for the A's, or bad loss for the A's. There's no bad wins. They were clobbered, and the 9 runs is a little misleading because they let some guy make his debut for the year and just let him die on the vine, and that happens. So not much more to break down. Win tomorrow. See what happens. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about a player who has a strong emotional connection to both the Red Sox and the A's. And he won a World Series with one. He did not win a World Series with the other. But the World Series he won was the definition of bittersweet. Hey, this episode of Locked On A's is brought to you by Booking.com, or shall I say, Booking.yeah. Let me tell you something. The summertime is the best time to be making trips, especially if you're a baseball fan. And I went on a fabulous baseball trip earlier this year. I went to Buffalo, got to see the Buffalo Bisons, went to Syracuse, saw the Syracuse Mets, and then I drove all the way to Cooperstown and spent 2 glorious days at the Baseball Hall of Fame. And at each place, guess what I did? I had to book a fabulous hotel, and I used Booking.com. In Buffalo, by the way, Buffalo is a really nice city if you've not been there. Beautiful downtown, and my hotel was right in the middle of it. I stayed at a nice, safe hotel right nearby the college campus at Syracuse, and then the most charming bed and breakfast, walking distance to the Baseball Hall of Fame and the lake. And I got it all on Booking.com. From hotels that overlook the stadium to those fabulous bed and breakfasts that make you feel like you're a member of the Cooperstown community. You got to find your choices at booking.com because they have them all. The right stay can make you the fan of any city, even your rivals. Book today at booking.com or at the site at booking.com. Booking.com, more like booking.yeah. You know, it's one thing to go to the city to see those games, but it's another thing to get your tickets. And let me tell you something, A's fans, you should be using Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace that helps make getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, and killer last-minute deals, all-in prices and views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. Hey, A's fans, let's make sure the final game in Oakland is an absolute sellout. And do you know what? Why don't we make the second to last game a sellout too? Get your tickets on Game Time. Find the best place to sit. You get zone deals. Find the zone in the stadium you like to sit at. They'll get you the best deal there. Get seat views, panoramic views from wherever you want, and you get the lowest price guarantee. FanDuel, Game Time, will grant you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying baseball tickets with Game Time. I'm not even going to hit that out. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, the lowest prices. Do you know what they are? They're guaranteed. Hey, what is your hub for all of your sports fandom? Getting sports news, getting your sports takes. Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel. Program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in sports. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is indeed your team every day. Happy birthday. I mentioned we were going to talk about someone who had a connection to both the Red Sox and the Oakland A's. Happy birthday to Mike Andrews. Mike Andrews was an infielder for the Boston Red Sox in 1967. If you don't understand the significance of 1967, that's really the year that Red Sox Nation, as we have come to know it, was born. Well, what about Ted Williams and all that? After Ted Williams' retirement, there was an attendance problem at Fenway Park that was eerily similar to Oakland's attendance problem now. And if you read articles written in Boston at the time in the 1960s, every discussion of Fenway Park was, it stinks, it's obsolete, we need a new ballpark, we need something glorious. I read an article that was written in the Boston Globe banging the drum for a new stadium in Boston and praising some of the cities who had new state-of-the-art multi-purpose stadiums. One of the cities that was praised? Oakland. That's right. They took one look at the Oakland Coliseum and wanted to bring a wrecking ball to Fenway Park. But it's true. There was more than a little talk about tearing down Fenway and building a multi-purpose dome in downtown Boston for the Patriots and for the Red Sox. Well, the 1967 season came about, and the Red Sox, out of nowhere, took out three other teams. This is back when there was no playoffs. So just whoever finished in first place was in the World Series. And going into the final weekend of the season, one game separated four teams: the White Sox, the Tigers, Minnesota, and Boston. And Boston in 1967 had only been in the World Series once since that fateful 1918 year. Mike Andrews was a starting player on that Red Sox team that won the pennant on the final day of the season. They wound up taking a fabulous Hall of Fame-filled Cardinal team who had the best win-loss record of any National League team of the 1960s. It took them to Game 7, but nobody was beating Bob Gibson that year. But Mike Andrews was part of that team, a team that energized the city of Boston, made them fall in love with Fenway and the Red Sox all over again. And Mike Andrews became a beloved figure for the Red Sox. But baseball is a business, and eventually he found himself with the Chicago White Sox. Well, Charlie Finley, when he owned the A's, had a weird thing about second baseman. He had a revolving door of second baseman in 1972 when they won the World Series. And a lot of times he tried to make sure that no second baseman would bat. They just kept bringing in pinch hitters. And while Dick Green and Ted Kubiak and Tim Cullen and a bunch of other players were in that revolving door, sometimes it led to chaos, like when he ran out of second baseman in a potential clinching playoff game, and Gene Tennis, a catcher, was playing second base and made a critical error in a 10th inning rally. Well, the next year, he was no more secure in his second base. What did Dick Green ever do to Charlie Finley to not let him just have him play at second base? Well, he made a whole bunch of deals down the stretch in 1973, and he made a couple of deals to shore up the infield, but made them too late and brought up players too late to have them eligible for the World Series. And Manny Trio, who went on to be an all-star many times over, was a hot young second base prospect, but he wasn't put on the roster in time to be part of the World Series roster. And one of the players who had been acquired in a flurry of trades was Mike Andrews, who was known for his bat, not his glove. And in extra innings, after another revolving door of second baseman came around, Mike Andrews was in the field for the A's in the 12th inning of a critical Game 2 of the World Series. Now, there was 2 outs. The Mets already had the lead, and John Milner, who's the first baseman for the Mets, hit a ground ball right through Mike Andrews' legs, and it allowed Tug McGraw and the late Willie Mays to score. It was the last run Willie Mays ever scored in a major league game. And then Jerry Grody hit a ground ball. Andrews fielded it through to first base where Gene Tennis was playing. We should not be at second base. And the ball took Tennis off the bag, and Cleon Jones scored. Now, the replay showed that Tennis may have still had his foot on the bag, that may have been a blown call. But either way, Andrews was charged with 2 errors in that 12th inning, and a 7-6 lead turned into a 10-7 lead for the Mets, and they wound up holding on to win that game. Charlie Finley was absolutely furious at Mike Andrews for making those 2 errors. And Mike Andrews, stand-up guy, yeah, he made 2 errors. It happens. And he felt horrible about it. But what was really awful was Charlie Finley basically tried to coerce Mike Andrews to sign a piece of paper saying he was injured. He had a doctor who gave a fake doctor report. He brought in Dick Williams, the manager, and Mike Andrews before the flight to New York and said, sign this, you're injured. If there's because he found there's a loophole. If there was an injury to a player, he could then activate Manny Trio. Mike Andrews said, I'm not hurt. I made 2 errors. Nobody feels worse about this than me. And this was before free agency. This is before you had any real say in what happens in your career. And Finley said, I'll make sure you never play baseball again if you don't sign this. And Mike Andrews was a proud man, but eventually he's like, I can't end my career over this. So coerced, he signed it. Dick Williams was enraged that his player, who, made 2 errors, it happens. You rally behind that. By the way, the fact that it was a 6-6 game into extra innings showed the A's had a bunch of chances to win that game. It wasn't all Mike Andrews. But Dick Williams was absolutely aghast at what happened. And when the players found out that basically Charlie Finley, who they weren't crazy about anyway, was trying to humiliate this, stable, good, solid, professional major leaguer, they threatened to boycott Game 3, sit it out, forfeit it. Eventually, the commissioner of baseball forced that Mike Andrews be reinstated, but Mike Andrews was still at home. He didn't travel with the team. Eventually, they had to get him on a flight and fly him back. And it became the story of the World Series, how horrible Mike Andrews was treated. And it was universally accepted that Finley was completely wrong, to the point when Mike Andrews was reinstated, Dick Williams sent him up as a pinch hitter, and the New York fans gave him a standing ovation. Yeah, partly for committing the 2 errors, but partly to say, hey, we know you were done wrong. And the A's were wearing number 17s on their body in a show of solidarity. It was Mike Andrews' final game as a major leaguer. He was cut, wound up playing in Japan. Dick Williams was so disgusted by what happened, he resigned after the A's won the World Series. Mike Andrews, good, solid man. Went on to head the Jimmy Fund, which is, if you know anything about Red Sox baseball, is the main charity for the Red Sox, where they raise, through the Dana-Farber Institute, where they raise tons of money for pediatric cancer. And when I was a kid, before my family moved to the Bay Area, I spent a giant chunk of my childhood living in the suburbs of Boston. And one of the summer camps I went to was the Mike Andrews, Jerry Moses camp, which was I think it was at Merrimack College. Mom, you're listening to this, you can remember. I think it was at Merrimack College in Massachusetts, and it was run by Mike Andrews and Jerry Moses, another former member of the 67 Red Sox. And we all got to meet them, as we were all thrilled to meet former Red Sox players. But Mike Andrews, happy birthday. A good man. Earned his World Series ring, albeit with a little bit of humiliation and a strange connection between one beloved Red Sox team that almost won it all and a strange A's team that did win it all, but for some reason has this aura of the strange and combustible, that was the word I'm looking for, relationship between Finley and his players. Happy birthday, Mike Andrews. You deserve better than Finley. But do you know what? Those of us who know baseball know that you are a champion in every single stretch of that word. Hey, let's talk a little bit about our friends over at PrizePicks. You know what PrizePicks is, don't you? PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, PrizePicks is just you versus the numbers. All you have to do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. You can turn $10 into $1,000 because you could win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. And PrizePicks is now available in more than 30 states, including Texas, Georgia, and right here in California. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. In the end, it's really that easy. Hey, this is a reminder that Locked On has created the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Now it's available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channel app. Locked On Sports Day is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channel app. Is it just me, or is the silence about what is happening in the Sacramento move and the Vegas move kind of weird? I was trying to look up stuff, new twists in the story, and I've been coming up remarkably empty. And I find that weird because it's been a long time since there's been any substantial news coming from the Fishers, coming from Major League Baseball, coming from Vegas. We know that they're tearing down the Tropicana, but there's not been any new renderings. And yes, they showed us renderings back in March, but they were vague and seemed to be not a lot of details of the park. And, you know, and I read an article that John Shea wrote in the San Francisco Chronicle, and I'm trying not to just read anti-Fisher stuff. I'm trying to, I don't know, build a little bit of, you know, dealing with a hand that we've been dealt. And there was an article by John Shea in the San Francisco Chronicle where he interviewed, you may have seen Andrew Zimbalist, another connection with Massachusetts because he's a economist professor at Smith College in I believe that's in Worcester. And this is a quote from Zimbalist: "I don't see this as a promising prospect. Fisher hasn't endeared himself to anybody in the process. If they go forward with the plan to play in Sacramento, it'll be a major economic hit for him. And he was saying the way modern stadiums are financed is through collateral and real estate deals where the owners will kick in a certain amount of money, and in return, they'll get development rights around the ballpark, but there's not a lot of room around the ballpark. Now, there's some economists who are saying, oh, he has the money. He wouldn't do this if he didn't. Lou Wolf and the Wolf family, who owned the A's before the Fishers, said, oh, I've known him for a long time. He wouldn't have done this unless he has everything all lined up. But isn't it odd? You would think there would be a lot of news coming on about it, especially because the narrative has been so anti-Fisher and so anti-A's. And the narrative seems to be so skeptical of this even happening. And they have to win over the good folks of Vegas to make this happen. They have to win over investors. They have to win over people to find out that this is a viable thing to do. You would think there'd be all sorts of stories getting ahead of it to sort of get people excited instead of just having the same story over and over again. The A's are leaving and they're going to be playing a couple of years and who knows what's going to happen after that. I'm not saying lie, but maybe some propaganda. I mean, the lack of a real design for the ballpark is what blows my mind. We've seen, as I said, we've seen the Keith Haring drawing that they called a ballpark design earlier this year, and it's not clear it's even passed code. It's not clear that the dome part of it may be too high because of the airport nearby. It's not clear where the hell anyone's going to park. And mind you, it's not clear that there's any money. So I for a team that has to put a quality product in the field and claims to be starting play in 2028, that year's gonna come around really fast. I don't know if you've noticed this, but years fly by this decade. So I'm eager to hear some, I'm not good news, bad news, just news, updates. Lie to me, do something. Put some propaganda, create a sizzle reel. The Fishers are still sitting there, and if I'm the city of Vegas, I would be going, hey, what the hell is going on with these people? I'm stunned that they don't have enough people to try to get ahead of this story. But then again, am I stunned after witnessing what they've been doing with the A's these last bunch of years? I don't know. Neither do you. But hey, we're going to continue the Red Sox and A's series for tomorrow. And see what we're going to see who has the control of the series starting tomorrow. That's how I'll phrase it gently. So follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever it's called now. And on Instagram, you can follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Reviewing game one of the A's and the Red Sox and giving Mike Andrews his due. This has been Locked On A's. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.